Americans meet with Putin. A Kadyrovite base is attacked in Chechnya and a former deputy returns stolen artifacts. All this and more right now on TSN. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and leave comments on this broadcast so we know which topics interest you the most. And here's what else we'll be talking about in today's broadcast. A city mourns its dead while doctors fight for the lives of the wounded.
Everything will be all right. Don't give up. You're going to live.
Dnipro, on the second day after the terrorist attack. What is the condition of those injured by Russian ballistic missiles? Another $5 billion and new batches of weapons.
I don't expect any changes in this anytime soon.
How do peace negotiations affect military aid to Ukraine? And what weapons are currently a priority? A 14-meter gift to the city.
When we originally planted it here, it was significantly shorter than my current height.
How the main holiday tree was installed in Lviv and where it came from. There are already 45 wounded as a result of the missile strike in Dnipro. 13 people are in serious condition and the lives of 3 are at risk. The Russians attacked the city with a ballistic missile on Monday morning. 4 people were killed, and today is a day to remember them. A day of mourning has been declared in Dnipro. Those who survived the strike shared their stories of survival with Olha Pavlovska.
I really wanted to live.
Mikhailo was on the roof when a ballistic missile struck the building directly. The solar panels he was installing at the time shielded him from most of the shrapnel. But after the explosion, his arm wouldn't move anymore. He recalls giving himself first aid with whatever was at hand.
I found the cable we used to pull the panels, clenched it in my teeth as best I could, pulled it and tied it up. Then it turned out that this cable was 30 meters long. I was looking for a way to cut it, because I wouldn't get far with a 30-meter cable.
He managed to get down on his own so as not to lose consciousness and to save his limb. He admits he was counting the seconds.
From the very first moment I was severely injured to the precise moment they administered a powerful sedative or something similar to that, a significant period of 930 agonizing seconds had indeed passed. Super fast.
Almost 50 wounded, including at their workplaces. After the explosion, they were pulled out by colleagues, rescuers, medics, and police officers.
It's okay. It's okay. Everything will be fine. Don't worry. You're going to live.
Just at this hospital alone, 39 victims were brought in. 13 of them are still in intensive care. 3 of them are in a coma.
There's still a lot to do before they can breathe on their own. And amputations, very severe ones, traumatic brain injuries. Unfortunately, there are also eyes that have been knocked out and many fractures.
In just one day, they were given 14 liters of donated blood. The surgeries went on non-stop.
I was just born under a lucky star.
Ms. Ala was preparing lunch in the cafeteria where she works with her family when the explosion happened.
I was dividing up the salad at that moment. The explosion was like lightning, and then nothing else. And I only felt that blood was pouring, but I didn't even feel the impact.
The neurosurgeons immediately took her to the operating room because the wound was dangerous.
There was a risk of necrosis and infection because there was dirt in the wound. The wound was deep, all the way to the bone.
Ms. Ala hopes to return to her family soon. And as for Mikhailo, he believes that the doctors will be able to restore the function of his hand because he has major volunteer projects and a newborn daughter. Ola Pavlovska, Alexander Kulish, Dnipro, TSN 1+1.
There are already 3 dead. In Kyiv, the number of victims has increased as a result of the attack on the night of Saturday, November 29th. A man who was in critical condition has died in the hospital. This was reported by the city mayor, Vitaly Klitschko. 4 people were killed and 6 were injured. The occupiers in Donetsk region. Kramatorsk was heavily attacked by drones. There, 2 people were killed and 5 were injured. 9 shells hit Kostiantinivka. There is 1 dead and 1 injured. And in Lyman, a man did not survive a drone strike. Drones are also terrorizing the Kharkiv region. 6 people were injured there today. 4 women required medical assistance. They were in their homes when they were struck by the occupiers. 2 men were hospitalized with shrapnel wounds. An FPV drone set their car on fire. In Komishani, which is in the Kherson region, a shell hit a residential house and the owner was hospitalized with a blast injury in Bilozerka. A passerby was wounded and 2 more men were injured in Urozhain and Berislav. The enemy is using both missiles and drones to attack the Dnipro region. In the Mezhivska community, a man and a woman were injured in their own damaged homes. In the Samarsky district, fires were extinguished at critical infrastructure sites. In the Zaporizhzhia region, enemy forces have increased the number of airstrikes. Over the course of the day, they dropped 28 aerial bombs on villages and towns in the region. And using all types of weaponry, they carried out nearly 700 strikes on the region. The number of people killed in Ternopil after the missile strike carried out by the enemy on November 19th has risen to 36. An 81-year-old woman died in a hospital in Lviv. She lived in a 9-story building that caught fire after the strike. The woman suffered severe multiple injuries and burns covering 50% of her body. In total, nearly 100 people sought medical assistance at that time. 15 adults and 1 child are still in hospitals in Ternopil. 5 people, including a small child, are still considered missing. During the combined strike, 2 buildings in the city were damaged. The apartment building where the missile destroyed several floors will be dismantled by the end of the year, and the one where 2 entrances burned down will be repaired. Due to the tragedy on November 19th, the city council decided not to put up a New Year tree in the center of Ternopil this year. There will only be a Christmas nativity scene. A former high-ranking official of Energoatom was detained in Kyiv. The prosecutor general reported that the former acting vice president of the state company is in custody. He had previously held the position of deputy minister of energy. According to media reports, he was detained. This is Yuri Sheko. Now the former employee is being charged with embezzlement and abuse of office. According to investigators, he artificially inflated the cost of services and later discovered it from the invoices. Energoatom lost more than 18.5 million hryvnias. Prosecutor General Ruslan Kravchenko also reported that the scheme organized by the detainee leads to the ultimate beneficiaries in the Russian Federation. The man faces up to 8 years behind bars. A parliamentary day that didn't go as planned. The European Solidarity faction blocked the rostrum, and chairman of the Verkhovna Rada Ruslan Stefanchuk closed the session without a single vote being held. Today, MPs had planned to vote on next year's budget, the adoption of which is already overdue. However, even before the session began, it became clear that there weren't enough votes to support the budget. Both the opposition and the coalition have many critical remarks about it. Moreover, after the corruption scandal and the resignation of the head of the president's office, Andriy Yermak, the single-party majority has been shaken. Some MPs are demanding a continued reboot of the government, and some are pushing for MPs from the Servant of the People party to have their right to vote restored and to no longer be treated as a puppet faction. As for the promised government appointments, there are still no agreed-upon candidates. There are neither candidates for the positions of Minister of Energy and Minister of Justice, nor enough votes to support them. The European Solidarity and Batkivshchina factions also do not want to vote for the budget. They are demanding the resignation of Yulia Sviridenko's government. It was with this demand that Petro Poroshenko and the deputies of his faction blocked the rostrum and the presidium.
Unfortunately, I am currently being subjected to significant and illegal pressure as a public official. Therefore, I must respectfully ask my dear esteemed colleagues to announce a necessary recess in our ongoing plenary session.
Accusations and threats. Against the backdrop of a meeting with Trump's special envoy Steve Vitkoff regarding a peaceful settlement in Ukraine, Vladimir Putin made new statements that in no way indicate he is inclined to end the war. The Kremlin dictator claimed that Europeans are allegedly putting forward proposals for a peace plan that are unacceptable to Moscow and are generally preventing the Trump administration from achieving peace. He then went on to threaten that the Kremlin is ready for war with Europe if they attack them. Putin also expressed particular irritation over Ukrainian forces striking Russian tankers. He threatened to strike ports and ships in response. He also emphasized the importance of capturing Pokrovsk for achieving the objectives of the so-called special military operation. Let me remind you, the Ukrainian side denied that the city had come under enemy control. Trump's special envoy Steve Vitkoff and his son-in-law Jared Kushner were supposed to present Putin in Moscow with the latest developments on the peace plan from the Americans, Europeans, and Ukrainians. Today, during his visit to Ireland, Volodymyr Zelensky announced that the U.S. delegation had promised to relay messages to him. Immediately after the meeting with Putin, Axios reports that with the president of Ukraine, Vitkoff and Kushner will meet in Europe and inform him about the content of the conversation in the Kremlin. There is no consensus among alliance members regarding Ukraine's accession to NATO. However, our country must receive security guarantees that will protect its sovereignty. This was stated by the Secretary General of the Alliance, Mark Rutte, on the eve of the meeting of foreign ministers in Brussels. How do they view the ongoing peace negotiations there, and what are they willing to compromise on? Iryna Prokofieva will tell us.
The strongest security guarantee for Ukraine is its own armed forces supported by its allies. This is how NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte commented on the peace efforts of the United States. The alliance of 32 members features in all negotiation tracks and sees Russia as a threat to its own security.
Right now, we need to bring the war to a point where a peace process becomes possible, and then make sure that all the details are agreed upon. Europeans have already done a lot of work closely cooperating with the United States to ensure security guarantees for Ukraine after a peace agreement. And of course, the strongest foundation of this security will be the armed forces of Ukraine, the first line of defense for Ukraine itself. And
already this Wednesday, the foreign ministers of the alliance member countries will gather right here at NATO headquarters in Brussels to discuss the greatest threats and challenges they face. They are only intensifying. Russia is becoming increasingly reckless on the eastern flank of Europe. How can it be contained? This is one of the most important questions. The ministers will also devote a lot of attention to supporting Ukraine. What is needed here and now for self-defense, and what will be necessary in the future if peace negotiations do succeed.
obviously, we want the war to end, but with a sovereign Ukraine, and with guarantees that Russia will never again attempt to attack it. This is extremely important. Negotiations are ongoing right now. We are aware of everything being discussed there, but please allow me to keep some intriguing mystery and not reveal all of the intricate details just yet.
Then, regardless of how the peace talks end, the procurement of weapons for Ukraine through the Peril program will continue. Major General Mike Keller stated this in an exclusive interview with TSN. Currently, the NATO Ukraine Center for Training and Education Analysis is focused on procuring additional air defense systems and missiles for them. By the end of the year, contracts worth 5 billion euros have already been signed with the United States, and they will be fulfilled on time.
We do not see any impact from the negotiations, so the flow of materials, especially from the United States, has been ongoing continuously since the launch of the Pearl program in August. And I do not expect any changes in this in the near future. And this is essentially what we work on every day.
For the third time, US Secretary of State Marco Rubio will miss a meeting with his European colleagues. This was confirmed by Mark Rutte, and it's clear why. Instead, the Ukraine Council will take place. And here, they are already expecting the Ukrainian Minister of Foreign Affairs, Andriy Sybiha. And it is worth noting that this is a unique case when Ukraine, which is not a member of the North Atlantic Alliance, has received a separate format and a seat at the table among NATO allies. From Brussels, Iryna Prokofieva, Volodymyr Parakonsky, TSN 1+1.
What kind of security guarantees does Ukraine need to protect us from new Russian attacks? And what are Europe and the United States actually willing to agree to? Right now, to defend our territory? Write everything you think about this in the comments to this broadcast on YouTube. Also, give us a like, subscribe to the channel, and I'll continue with the TSN broadcast. The European Central Bank has refused to support a payment to Ukraine of 140 billion euros using frozen Russian assets. According to the Financial Times, the agency concluded that the European Commission's proposal violates its mandate. It was to the European Central Bank that officials appealed, asking it to act as a creditor against the transfer of frozen Russian assets to Kyiv, and Belgium is supporting this. That is where the largest amount of Russian assets is held. Brussels is asking for guarantees against future lawsuits from the Kremlin. According to Politico, European officials accuse the Belgian side of making excessive demands, such as requesting payment within a few days of an amount exceeding 140 billion euros. Brussels is also asking that the duration of the guarantees extend beyond the period of sanctions against Russia. The reparations loan plan is set to be approved in a few weeks during the EU leaders' summit. However, if the vote fails, European countries are preparing a plan B to ensure that Ukraine does not end up without funding at the beginning of 2026. This refers to the issuance of additional EU debt obligations to cover Ukraine's budget deficit. However, this particular idea is not widely popular among most European Union governments, primarily as it inherently involves using valuable taxpayers' money. A personal corruption scandal involving searches in Belgium. Local media report the detention of former EU Foreign Policy Chief Federica Mogherini. In addition to her, 2 other individuals were detained, all in connection with a case of possible fraud involving the use of EU funds, corruption, conflict of interest, disclosure of official secrets, and favoritism during training tenders. Federica Mogherini served as the EU High Representative for Foreign Affairs and Security Policy from 2014 to 2019. And by the way, she visited Ukraine more than once. Recently, she worked as the rector of the prestigious College of Europe, where future European diplomats are trained. And it is at this institution that the investigation is currently ongoing. The investigation. In addition to European institutions in Brussels, searches were also conducted in the city of Bruges, where the college is located, as well as in the private homes of the suspects. According to preliminary information, those detained worked at the College of Europe together with Mogherini. They burned the body and fled to Ukraine. Our law enforcement officers have detained the suspects in the case of the murder of a 21-year-old Ukrainian in Vienna. This was reported by the Austrian press. It is known that the 2 arrested men are 45 and 19 years old. One of the attackers studied at the university together with the victim. It is currently unknown whether they have already been interrogated and whether they admit their guilt. Vienna police suspect that the murder was financially motivated. The attackers stole a significant sum of money from the victim's crypto wallet. It is also reported that the detainees will not be extradited to Austria. Instead, they will be tried by the Ukrainian side. The gruesome crime took place on November 26th. Viennese rescuers responded to a call about a fire in a car with Ukrainian license plates. And inside the black Mercedes, they found a lifeless body. The police found signs of violent death, in particular blows to the head with a blunt object, which immediately led to the theory of murder. The student's friends and family raised the alarm about his disappearance because he had not been able to get in touch. Social. Citing his own sources, he writes that the murdered person may be the son of Kharkiv Deputy Mayor Serhiy Kuzmin. Kharkiv Mayor Igor Terekhov declined to comment, saying that this was Kuzmin's personal story. Sweden is allocating a winter aid package of 100 million euros for Ukraine. The package will be aimed at meeting urgent needs this winter, as well as strengthening Ukraine in the future. The funds will go in particular toward energy supply, repair and restoration of damaged infrastructure, reforms and healthcare. Energy supply is an important component of overall defense. This not only strengthens Ukraine's resilience, but also the defense of all of Europe. This is how Sweden's Minister for Energy and Economy, Ebba Busch, commented on the decision. Italy has approved its 12th package of military aid to Ukraine. The corresponding decree was published on the government website, but the list and value of the weapons remain strictly confidential for security reasons. It is only noted that the decree was signed by Defense Minister Guido Crosetto with the approval of the Ministers of Foreign Affairs and Economy. Overall, according to various estimates, since the beginning of Russia's invasion, Italy has provided Ukraine with about 3 billion euros in aid. Among these in particular are 2 air defense batteries, SAMs. Rome has also indicated that it is ready to join the initiative to purchase American weapons. Pearl. And now to the situation at the front. Against the backdrop of negotiations in Moscow, the enemy is actively spreading disinformation. Thus, the General Staff of the Armed Forces of Ukraine refutes the rumors about the alleged capture of Vovchansk, Kupiansk, and Pokrovsk by the Russians. They say the fighting continues. Battles are still ongoing there, with the fiercest fighting in the Pokrovsk and Mirnorad directions. According to the Deep State portal, the Russians have captured the settlement of Kozatsky in the Donetsk region. This is near Pokrovsk. The enemy continues to spread out across the city and its outskirts, and is trying to establish physical control in the Pokrovsk area. This is reported by Deep State analysts. The defense forces are clearing certain areas, with most of the work being done by pilots, while the enemy is bringing in new infantry. There are also problems in the area near the settlement of Rivne and along the stretch between Pokrovsk and Krasny Lyman. There, the Russians are setting up ambushes, mining sectors, and constructing barbed wire engineering barriers. Overall, during the day in the Pokrovsk direction, the occupying forces carried out about 50 assault and offensive operations. In this same sector, Ukrainian defenders neutralized over 100 occupiers, destroyed 11 drones and 4 vehicles. Robots are saving robots. The fighters of Kholodny Yar demonstrated an unusual use of ground robotic systems. The Kholodny Yar fighters released a video showing how a robotic system rescues a wounded comrade from the front line who was damaged by shelling. Fighters from the Alter Ego battalion also use ground robots to evacuate downed aerial drones. In the video, we can see how an NRC named Lyashko, equipped with pitchforks and a net, picks up a downed Vampire UAV. Lyashko, with pitchforks and a net, picks up the downed Vampire UAV. Such aerial vehicles, the brigade emphasizes, are very expensive, so even if the drone cannot be restored, its parts will be used to repair other damaged ones. Vampires. A strike on the oil depot and a fiery greeting to Kadyrov from the Ukrainian Defense Forces. A night explosion in Chechnya. According to reports from the de-occupation organization CHKRI NIZO, targets in Gudermes were hit. According to preliminary data, it was there that the Ukrainian Defense Forces attacked the location of Kadyrov's Akhmat unit. There are dead and wounded. The FSB building in the Chechen city of Achkhoi-Martan was also hit. A successful strike hit the oil depot in Livny, which is in the Oryol region. There is information about a fire at the Oryol oil depot. The governor of the region confirmed the incident at the oil facility. By the way, in November, Ukrainian drones carried out a record number of strikes on Russian oil refineries since the beginning of the war. They were attacked at least 14 times. Ukraine has nothing to do with the attack on the Mid-Volga tanker. This was stated by the spokesperson of the Ukrainian Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Georgy Tikhiy. He noted that Ukraine officially denies any accusations from Russian propaganda and clarified that the supposed route from Russia to Georgia through Turkey's economic zone makes no sense. Therefore, the attack on the tanker could have been staged. Let me remind you, the Mid-Volga 2 tanker, which was transporting sunflower oil from Russia to Georgia, was attacked. This happened near the coast of Turkey. This was reported by the Turkish Ministry of Transport. The crew members of the tanker were not injured, and the vessel is currently heading to the port of Sinop. Russian bombers are attacking their own troops, and civilians are also being affected. This was reported by the publication Astra. Recently, this happened in occupied Volnovakha. An FAB-250 bomb was accidentally released from the aircraft. According to the editorial team's calculations, since the beginning of the year, at least 131 aerial bombs and 3 missiles have fallen from Russian aircraft while they were over Russia, as well as over occupied territories of Ukraine. To increase their range, the Russians began equipping Soviet high-explosive aerial bombs, that is, FABs, with guidance kits. After such an upgrade, FABs are fitted with wings and satellite guidance, which allows them to be launched from Russian territory without exposing their bombers to the danger posed by Ukrainian air defenses. But due to the imperfect installation, the aerial bombs often detach from the aircraft improperly, fail to reach their target, and can fall anywhere. The Kremlin tries to cover up such incidents, and when Russian FABs harm civilians, they lie and claim it was supposedly an attack by the Ukrainian armed forces. The SBU counterintelligence, together with British intelligence services, uncovered a British national involved in the murders of Ukrainian politicians Andriy Paruby and Iryna Prokofieva. According to sources from Ukrainska Pravda, it concerns a man named David Catmore, who, on assignment from Russian intelligence services, was engaged in espionage and sabotage in Ukraine. According to the publication's source, Catmore arrived in Ukraine as a military instructor to train Ukrainian fighters. The investigation believes that the Briton imported and distributed weapons in Ukraine, which were used to kill Demian Hanul, Iryna Prokofieva, and Andriy Paruby. The weapons for these murders were provided to him by Russian intelligence services. Now, the Russian agent has been detained and is being held in custody.